All right, here's a demonstration on how to complete the second worksheet or the worksheet that has neutral colors on it, black, white, and gray. If you are at home and you're setting up your own worksheet or practice space, your page might look like this. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes up here. It is going to go from white to gray to black. And then underneath, I'm using triangles. And I am making a column that has shades, tints, and tones. So if you're at home, you're going to set up your page like this. If you're in the classroom, you're just going to use one of these worksheets. Now, this is the demonstration on how to do this with a tempera paint or acrylic paint. So this is different than if you are using other kind of media. I have my tempera paint here on a palette. This is just an old plastic plate. I have white paint, I have black paint, and then I have one of my primary colors. You're going to need all 3 of your primary colors. So just a reminder, for tempera paint and acrylic paint, we don't really use water to thin down the paint. We just use water when we're changing colors or changing different types of paint. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I am going to take white and I am going to paint the white spot here. And again, I am trying to use correct technique with the tempera paint. So with tempera paint, I want it to be smooth. I want it to be opaque. So right now I am covering the area with the white, but you can see I have lots of ridges or bumps in my paint. So before I'm finished with this area, before it dries, what I'm going to do is I just kind of wiped off a little bit of paint, and I'm going to go back and smooth it over. Some brushes are better at smoothing than others. Flat brushes actually work really well. It's a flat to smooth it out, but I need this round brush in order to get into the small spaces. So I'm going to try to smooth it out. I don't want too much paint on there. I don't want too little paint. Most people are fairly comfortable with the amount of paint that you need to cover the area, especially since this is the second worksheet that we're doing. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to take white and I'm going to add a little bit of black to make a gray. And the point of this value scale is that I make even steps to the next gray, and that it gradually gets darker and darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my white, and I'm actually taking a lot of it, and I'm going to add just a little bit of black. So I put a tiny, tiny dot of black onto my brush, and I'm going to mix it here. When we are doing this method of painting, we are doing all of our mixing on the palette and then painting the area on our paper. So I kind of will roll my brush to help it mix. I'm going to take a little bit more black because it doesn't look like it's making a gray, really. It still looks mostly white. Take a little bit more. Black can really quickly change the white, so that's why I do just a little bit at a time. So when I have this area completely mixed up, and sometimes people like to use the end of their paintbrush like this. They feel like it goes a little bit faster and I don't waste paint. That's up to you. So I have my next gray and then I'm going to paint it. Now I want to make sure that I can see a difference between the white and then this next step, darker, the gray. Again, I'm evening it out. All right, that's a pretty good step. Next, I'm going to add, just to that same pile of gray, I'm going to add a little bit more black. So I know right now this is going to be darker than this space I just painted. Now what I'm trying to figure out is it dark enough to make an even step all the way across? So I'm not sure. I'm going to paint right next to it. Yes, looks like I can see a difference. When I am done, I'm going to go back and kind of look at, are my grays kind of making equal jumps darker. And sometimes I can get too many light grays or too many dark grays, and I might have to go back and paint over areas. So again, I'm going to add a little bit more black, paint the next gray. So I'm going to keep going until I get down to that black area. Again, I'm going to test it. That one doesn't quite, can't tell a difference enough. So I'm going to add a little bit more black. All right, once I'm finished with that, I'm going to start mixing my neutral, we call them neutral colors sometimes, with my primary hues. So just to be clear, a hue is the color wheel name. So red is a hue, yellow is a hue, blue is a hue, green is a hue. And what you're going to do down here is you are going to add in neutral colors. So black is first. You're going to make a shade. Think about shade being darker. So if I'm in the shade, it's a little darker. I'm going to take red and I'm going to add a little bit of black. I don't want to add so much black that I cannot still tell that that color is red. So I'm going to take red. Again, I kind of scoop it out from my main color, and I'm going to add just a little bit of black. So I don't want too much black so that it looks black. I don't want too little black so I can't even tell that it's a darker shade of red. So once I mix that shade, I'm going to paint in the space. Yellow is pretty tricky. Yellow, you don't want to add again. You don't want to add too much black. It'll just look black. You only have to add a teeny tiny bit. Then you're going to make a shade of blue and then a shade of green. The next is a tint of red. So I'm going to wash my brush completely. A tint is a lighter version of color by adding white. There are other ways to make tints if you get more advanced in color theory, but we're just going to go with a lighter version by adding white. So I'm going to add white to my red over here. Again, I want to add enough so that you can tell that I have added something that is a lighter version of red, that it's not just pure red. If it looks pure red, then I'm going to add a little bit more white. Now you can make this a very, very faint, light version of red. That's fine too. So the last one over here is a tone. So a tone is when you mix gray with the hue. So if I use this really light gray with red, I'm going to get a lighter version of red. If I use a dark gray, I'm going to get a darker version. What I like to do for this one is I just take my shade of red and my tint of red, because I have extra paint here, and I mix these together. And when I mix these together, I have red paint in there, I have black from the shade, and I have white from the tint. And so now I have a tone, which is red plus black and white, or gray. So you are going to work these 4 different hues, making a shade, a tint, and a tone of each one, painting them in very carefully, solid. If after it dries, so this is still drying up here. If after this dries, I see I'm not making even steps, I'm going to go back and mix up the correct value and paint right on top of it. In most cases, if your paint is dry and it's tempera paint, you can just paint right back over it and it will cover it. So finish that up. There are 4 different hues to do down here. And your value scale, do not forget to write in black, white, and gray so that you know those definitions of shade, tint, and tone.